Today, I would like to talk about Fallout 76 factions and everything we know about them so far, and just sort of my opinions on that. In an interview Pete Hines had with Game Reactor, he had a few things to say about Fallout 76 factions. Now, most of us have seen this interview where Pete Hines says, if you want to be a Minuteman, then be a Minuteman and recruit other people to be Minutemen, and he goes on. If you would like to see the entire interview with Game Reactor, I will link to it in the description below, and you can check that out. Basically what we're told here by Pete Hines is that we don't need Bethesda to create these factions for us, that we will be given the so-called ability to do it ourselves. When I first heard this, I thought it was awesome. I've always been a fan of the Minutemen, so I could create a faction or join a faction of like-minded individuals, and we could go on quests doing things like Minutemen activities. And this time I probably wouldn't have to listen to Preston talk.
All right. Have it your way.
And then I started thinking about this a little more, and I'm not really 100% sure how this whole faction creating system will work. Will there be actual factions like the Minutemen, Brotherhood of Steel, or the NCR, or is it simply just another name for what other online games call clans? Can me and my friends get together and create a faction declaring ourselves as the Yo Mama Slayers? Obviously with a bunch of X's and 69s in the name. I think there's a very distinct difference between clans and factions in online games. When I hear factions, I think of things along the line of game mechanics. I think of gaining and losing certain abilities or perks with one faction, and then others with other factions. As far as gaming goes, I feel like a faction is something that can affect the storyline of the game and the quests you go on, like how factions were in Fallout 4. I think a clan more refers to a group of friends you like to experience the game with. Call it a faction if you want, but if it really just allows you to ally yourself with others and doesn't really change the game in any way, it's basically a clan. This brings up the topic of questing. I assume you'll exit Vault 76 and begin a quest line that gradually takes you all around the map. You'll get sidetracked by the Mothman and go on a side quest. Maybe find a pre-war journal that tells you to go check something out. But it sounds to me like there's only really going to be one main storyline, the Vault 76 storyline where you explore the wasteland and rebuild it. I don't feel very good about this. A good portion of the reason Fallout 4's questing was so fun, at least for me, was because it was so incredibly dynamic. Like most people, I started out Fallout 4 working with the Minutemen, and then soon realized that other factions had really cool things to offer. I mean, you get free power armor with the Brotherhood of Steel, you can get access to the Institute with the Institute. Every time you change factions, it affected the game in a different way and changed the overall outcome of it altogether. Don't get me wrong, I'm still very excited for Fallout 76, and I'm really excited to see how they're gonna make questing work with no NPCs. I suppose I would just really like to see a little bit more from faction questing than what it appears we're going to be getting. That being said, I would like to share with you my thoughts on an ideal faction situation for Fallout 76. I like the idea of having a very wide range of factions to choose from. I personally think the more the merrier. But I wouldn't want every single player to have their own faction. That's just not really logical. I think you should have to have a substantial number of players in order to open a faction. I'm not really worried about this. I assume Bethesda will make something along these lines. In addition to this, I don't think that you should be able to create factions per se. Rather, I think you should be able to create sub-factions. Allow me to elaborate. We have a wide variety of existing factions. The Brotherhood, Minutemen, NCR. I could go on. For example purposes, I'm going to use the Brotherhood of Steel. So, say some jerk, also known as XX69 Yo Mama Slayer XX69, is one of the first people to start playing Fallout 76, and he swoops in and steals the faction name of the Brotherhood of Steel. This is a problem, because like we said before, Yo Mama Slayer is a jerk. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to choose who does and does not enter your faction, but if you can, he could just say no one else is allowed into the Brotherhood of Steel. And this is a problem because a lot of people love the Brotherhood of Steel and they want to be part of the actual faction, not the Brotherhood of Steel 01. Instead, I don't think anyone should be able to choose the actual name of the faction, like the actual Brotherhood of Steel name. Instead, I think you should be able to choose to be part of an existing faction, like the Brotherhood of Steel, and then create a sub-faction. For example, the Crimson Knights or the Paladin Dancers. I know, Paladin Dancers. Good one, right? So you could have your allies in your faction, the Brotherhood of Steel, and then have your friends in your sub-faction, or the Crimson Knights. I think there's a lot of interesting things you could do if you were able to join a faction and a sub-faction. For example, paint jobs. Say everyone within the Brotherhood of Steel faction could get this symbol for a paint job, but then every sub-faction could choose different colors for it. And then if there's leaderboards of any sort for Fallout 76, you could have your sub-faction's symbol displayed. I think this is a simple way to make factions a little more dynamic. An idea I have that I think would make the game a little more dynamic would be that you could theoretically go to war with another faction. You could get randomly asked as a Brotherhood of Steel faction member if you would like to go to war with the Institute faction. Each player would get 1 vote to go towards their sub-faction's vote, and then each sub-faction would get a number of votes based off of how many people were in that faction to go towards the overall faction vote, similar to a presidential electoral college vote. And then if the vote was high enough, you could go to war with another faction for, say, a week. And then during that week, you could get extra bonuses or loot from defeating players from that opposing faction. Or at the end of the week, a winner could be determined, and then you can get rewards based off of how much you participated. Just some ideas I've been brainstorming. Well, that's all I got for you today. Please let me know what you thought in the comments below regarding the factions or regarding my ideas. I would love to hear your feedback. That being said, I hope you stay smooth and stay rad, and have a great day. See you guys.